welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of a beautiful collection of short stories. They had a really long half-life, sort of lingering in my brain long after I read them. They were very affecting and very, very interesting, and I am so excited to talk about them. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Jen, for inviting me to speak today. And thank you for your kind words. I'm Katrina Denza, a writer from North Carolina and originally from Vermont. And this is my debut collection of short stories, Burner and Other Stories, published by Cornerstone Press.
Such an interesting collection. And I'd love to start by asking you a little bit about your journey as a writer. What drew you to the short form, to the short story, and how did this collection come about?
So I've always loved to write. I was first a reader. As a kid, my school librarian would sort of break the rules and allow me to take more than 6 books home with me because she knew I would read them and bring them back quickly. I started writing knockoff Nancy Drew stories in grade school and, featuring me, of course, and my friend. Yeah, I've always been drawn to writing. I did in my 20s and early 30s sort of switch gears and was a painter for a bit and a collage artist. But when I moved to North Carolina, it was a total change from Vermont, and I picked up writing again. That felt like home. I was home in writing, and short stories have I think it was kind of a new inspiration. When I moved here, I started reading short stories by Richard Bausch, also different Eudora Welty, all of the greats I started reading, and I thought there was something that was so magical to me in the form, in that you can actually create a world in almost novel-like span, but in short compaction. And there was something really impactful to me about the art form. And I worked at the art form for many, many, many years. Um, and I'm not sure I've achieved what I'd hoped, but I'm always striving. I just think short stories are magical.
Wow. Are there any similarities in the collage process to the assembling a short story collection process?
That's a great question. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think when I assembled these stories, there was a lot of intuition involved. Of course, the title story I wanted first, but it just sort of happened that the order fell into place, and I was particularly happy with the end story being where it was because um, there's something about that story that I felt summed up the female empowerment part of the whole collection. I started writing these stories during the pandemic, most of them. There were a couple that I had written before. And it occurred to me during the pandemic that for a lot of us, technology was a way, if not the only way, to be connected to our loved ones.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about, the people who could only talk to their loved ones through Zoom if they were in the hospital and things like that. And so, I started thinking about the ways we communicate or we think we're communicating via technology and how easy a text is, for instance, and how easily a text can be misunderstood, or, how people who are lonely could suddenly follow the lives of people that They had no idea, they'd never met in real life, but they could feel as if they were friends with these total strangers. So I really started muddling about that. And that was the connecting theme, technology, but also I can't help but write about female empowerment.
That is so interesting. And yeah, there does seem to be a running interest in how technology can connect us and or alienate us sometimes at the same time in different like nuanced ways. And that is, I think, absolutely clear in the beginning story and the title story, Burner. Could you tell us a little bit about your process with that story and why
Yeah.
you chose that one to be the title for the volume?
Yeah, so burner speaks to uh, the sort of disposable connection we can have via technology as well. Burner phone, it's a play on words. Um, but that story was so much fun to write. There's some people who send someone, they'll ask, "Oh, send me a picture of yourself." But I wanted this character sort of to do the opposite. She was trying to send pictures of who she was in a non-sexual way, and sort of hoping that this man would connect with her in a more real way than a sort of flippant attitude would suggest.
I really love that dynamic. It is so interesting, the between the protagonist woman and this chef who she is developing this interest in. The way that you can use technology to like she is obscuring her identity and also revealing it at the same time. And that is just such a fascinating little paradox there.
That's a super point, Jen, and I'm not sure I was aware of that at the time. But yeah, I like that. Also, that was so much fun to write because I have worked in the restaurant business when I was younger,
Mm.
so I felt as if I knew it inside and out. And I will say right now, I have never had a crush on a chef.
Good disclaimer. That's good.
Right, right.
And but it's absolutely, I think, understandable just from the way that you depict the environment, in the kitchen of a busy restaurant, how that like forced intimacy of being in a really closed space with like a really frenetic, like high stakes, stressful environment, could engender that sort of like desire to connect in somebody.
Yes, yes. And you feel as if your coworkers are like your family in that kind of environment.
Mhm.
So it was not a stretch to think that she might fall for this new chef.
Yeah. Another one that I really that struck was In These Dark Woods. And I was, interested to hear that you are from Vermont because that's where that one is set. Yeah, so could you talk a little bit about that one and yeah, the maybe the inception point of that, the seed from which it grew.
Thank you. Yeah, I that's one of my favorites too, Jen. That one came from a time I spent at Vermont Studio Center in 2018. So this came before the pandemic.
Mm.
I was walking on the rail trail there, and I walk a lot alone in the woods here in North Carolina. But it occurred to me there too, which, Vermont foliage is a lot thicker and you can't really see through things. And it occurred to me how vulnerable we are as women walking in the woods alone. When I was a kid, as young as 8 years old, I would go for walks in the woods alone and didn't think anything of it. It's just what we did back then.
Mm.
But there isn't a day that goes by I don't think about my own personal vulnerability, and yet I choose to do it anyway. And I wanted to sort of set that out in this story. I came home and this was probably the quickest story I drafted. I was done with the first draft in 3 hours. I mean, it's a short story, and I probably revised it only 2 or 3 times. But for me, I wanted to convey the strength of a woman, and yet at the same time, coming to terms with the innate vulnerability she still has, even though, she thinks she's old enough to be over that nonsense, she still confronts it. And it was just pure fun to write. The polar bear came about because Dorian, she's a poet here in North Carolina and NC State, and she was in Vermont, and she gave this wonderful tip for poetry that suggested, look, if you're wanting to add something to your work, poetry or stories or novel, pick random, nouns or verbs out of different books and try to incorporate them into your narrative.
Mm.
And polar bear happened to be one of them. And it was a funny coincidence because not long after I drafted this story, the whole would you rather meet a man or a bear in the woods came
Yeah.
about, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I think my favorite part of that story is a reminder that no matter our vulnerability, our strength is in our light that
Mm,
we carry.
yeah.
And, I hope that I hope that that carries through the whole collection.
Oh, absolutely. And it sort of revealed another, quiet sort of defiance in the face of that vulnerability, like to choose to take the walk anyway. What really struck me was so with the polar bear imagery, how that sort of plays into the dynamic between the woman and the lover that she is remembering, who has passed. He's sort of in awe of this idea of the polar bear, right? That is like the only animal that likes to hunt man for sport or, like intends to hunt man. And it kind of fascinates him and amazes him. And, as I'm reading about her walking through the woods and feeling her vulnerability, it occurred to me that, like, oh, to a woman alone, every man is the polar bear potentially, like, and we can't maybe romanticize it the same way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And uh, right, there comes a point in which, we can try all we want to project strength and of course and embody strength. But there's just the fact that women are more vulnerable, perhaps, and that, well, maybe everyone in the face of danger is vulnerable. So maybe it's not just a female issue, really, if you think about it. You just hope for the best.
Mm.
There's no way out of facing a polar bear. There's no trick. If you run, forget it, so you just hope for the best. And I think that was what she was doing. She wasn't entirely sure who this man was and if he was going to be a predator. Her hackles were up though, and I think it's important as women we listen to our intuition. I would like to hope that she made it through.
Mm. Yeah, me too. And there's something really interesting about that, like the lose-lose nature of the situation, because there is no either easy out
Mhm.
or a decision that will not have some sort of negative consequence for her, you
Right.
know? And but that like that lose-lose situation also makes what you choose to do even more symbolic, like your choice that much more
Exactly.
charged, meaningful. Yeah.
Right. Right. And so, the idea that she's facing it anyway
Mhm.
was really important.
Yeah. You had started to talk a little bit about ordering the pieces and why you chose the final one. I'd love to know a little bit more about that process. Because it occurred to me while reading that like a short story collection doesn't have a narrative arc per se, but it does have either like an emotional arc or even like at the same time like a thesis, like an argument perhaps. Um, what were you trying to do with the order that you chose for the pieces?
Yeah. So a lot of it was intuitive, but I will say in each of the pieces, technology in some small way is featured. For instance, in You Could Be My Daughter, this woman, this lonely woman is trying to reach out to an influencer, and she's come to believe that the influencer is a friend.
Mm.
In Here in the Jungle, this man takes his influencer girlfriend takes him to the jungle to an ayahuasca retreat. So there's another influencer featured. Iris is an artist featured in two of the stories, and I wanted to separate her and Dan's stories with like a couple in between. I just wanted there to be a little break so that that break could also feature as a progression of Iris's life. And with her, this whole idea, she's a little bit older, and this whole idea of texting is new, and, she's a little clumsy at some of those things. The one set in Rome, There Is No Danger Here, the woman discovers through this trip with her boyfriend and his daughter that what she's really looking for is a connection, not so much, and I don't want to give any spoilers, it's not the connection she thought she wanted. So yeah, technology in some small way, and then some large ways, like toward the end, a grieving widow hires a hologram or rents a hologram service so that she can say the things to her late husband that she couldn't say to him when he was living.
Yeah, that was a really affecting one too. And it had a very different perspective, I think, than I expected it to have. It was like affirming in a way that I think I didn't really anticipate.
Good, thank you.
What is next for you? Are you writing more stories at the moment? Do you think there's another collection in your future?
Yes, I've drafted another collection and revising. It takes me a long time to revise stories. I typically write them over and over and, until I'm sick of them. And then I'm taking notes for two novel ideas. And yeah, I'm really excited about both of them. I'm going to have to pick one though before long and really go with that one first. So, but yeah,
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's more short fiction on the horizon as well as some long fiction. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and our listeners. I'm very excited to share this one with all the readers in my life.
thank you so much, Jen. And thank you for your great questions.
Oh, thanks. It's an absolute pleasure. All right, listeners, please check out Burner. As we have discussed, it's absolutely beautiful and insightful, and it's going to make you think a lot about, I think, our modern world, how we interact with the technology, and what it means for our identity, for our relationships, for our society. It's just so, so interesting. Okay, thank you all for joining us. It is now time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.